looks like we're gonna have a look in the backyard, if you will, and I'll tell you what that's all about coming right up. Good morning, everybody, and this is Black Spring with Autumn on your Tuesday. And I know it's an 11th hour around here, but I appreciate it. And I just have just a couple of things for you. For one, I did start out by saying we're going to go to the backyard, and it's going to be. I'll give you the link for that. I also did a phone call with Backyard Politics, so you'll find out about that and that platform. And it was actually pretty refreshing to go over there, so that was interesting. But I'm going to show you a clip from that actual from that call, and also we might revisit something that I've referred to, or as many people know, the NIMBY culture. I did a little bit of a story on it about 2019, about that whole culture and what it is in SoCal, and I'm sure it spans wide, or beyond my words, but we're gonna get into that, and we'll just do a couple of thanks to our patrons and subscribers, and we'll just dig right in. I'll be right back. Thanks so much, guys. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for tuning in to our, I guess this is what I would call the sunrise surprise, but I didn't quite beat the sunrise, but no less. It's all in the same spirit. Okay, so thanks so much for coming in. Thank you so much for coming in. And I do want to say hello to everyone in the chat. And it appears that I might be just lagging just a little bit. So good morning to everyone. And first we had coming in was Tyrant Spain TDOA. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And for all your support and all you do. Awesome Alice. Thank you so much. And Backyard Politics is here. Hi, Backyard Politics. Thank you so much for coming in. And I see King, dare I say Bluto? Is it Bluto? All right. Interesting name. It's a fun name. And yeah, so thank you guys so much. And Tyrant Spain says, hey, yo. And Awesome Alice says it's Taco Tuesday. And Backyard Politics says, good morning. Thanks for calling in last night. Thanks so much for having me there. It was fun. And King Bluto says hello. Bit of a name change from, oh wow. So you're Chrysler. Okay. All right, I'm tracking. I got it. Thanks so much, King Bluto. All right, so let me get to what I'm on about because I want to get you in and get you out. Nobody gets hurt. So this dream was inspired by, um, for one, I thought after going on to backyard politics, and then of course I stumble onto tent funding that's coming out of San Francisco, which I'm not surprised. It also kind of makes me makes me want to go back to a bit of the stories that I did. One of the stories that I did back in 2019 on the whole NIMBY culture, and the NIMBY culture, the NIMBY actually stands for not in my backyard. So we'll look at that, and it's going to be the NIMBY culture of the not just SoCal, but as far as the Bay Area, somewhere between. I'm talking between Marin County and San Francisco when I talk about. Sorry about the alarm there. When I talk about the NIMBY culture, because it's very real. It's beyond the NIMBY culture at this point. But of course, never fear. San Francisco. They've got the answer, right? So we'll go ahead and start with that. And then I'm going to play after we go into San Francisco. I'll take you to the call from last night's backyard politics, where we kind of got into more of this, this Marxist kind of culture, or the rebranding of Marxism is what I'm thinking. And I've told you guys before, I think that we've seen this. We've seen the culture of Marxism, the effects on the schools, and as far back as the 60s. So we'll go there. We'll go there for that segment. And then I think we're going to round out with, we might round out with something even on like Soros, or maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think you might be curious about, what they're doing, or the path of destruction is what I'm on about. So we'll just keep going there. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Backyard Politics, for coming in. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to go ahead and share my screen with you on the first story that is coming from our friends over at the JBS. And that's where we're going to go first.
This segment of our show is brought to you by our good friends at the John Birch Society. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. The JBS is a constitutional and educational organization that's been around for over 60 years, dedicated to upholding and defending the Constitution and working to preserve our freedoms and liberties in this country. The JBS does not endorse any political party or candidates. Rather, it focuses on the education, training, and development of the American voters.
Okay, and just before we go there, I kind of want to I just want to give a shout out to Backyard Politics, because I think I'm very well on the same track, or I really appreciate the objective and the mission there. And I think it's really important that we understand that the importance of being active in civics in our local area as much as we can, or as I refer to as county seats. We need to understand the power of those seats and be as involved as we can. So if I'm not, I would hope that I would do some justice in my contention there with the objectives on Backyard Politics. And I think that's very important. And I think it's a great platform. And I think they have a very relevant message. And it's also they're very knowledgeable and quite down to earth. So thank you guys so much. And so we'll go ahead and start with the story. We'll go ahead and get into that story from our friends over at the JBS. Hope you guys are doing well this morning. So, all right. So what we have in front of you is coming from the TNA. That is the New American. And it is entitled San Francisco Pays $60,000 per tent for the homeless. And they ask for more funds. So it looks like they have a new writer over the JBS I'm not familiar with, but this is Penn woman Veronica Kirilenko. Okay, so this is what we have. As you can see, you have some imagery here that looks like, dare I say that this kind of reminds me of the elementary classroom in which you have circles carved out for everyone. I mean, stay on your circle. Stay on your circle during this music lesson right now. That's stay inside the circle. And these tents to me kind of remind me of that, but it's almost, this is some kind of a safe space or yeah. So let's just go ahead and get into the content here of that. Maybe we'll come to some realization or we'll come to some clarity by the end of it. Maybe it's not. Okay. It just looks like we're going around the world to avoid issues here these days. We're going to call it everything but what it is. Okay. All right. So let's move on beyond that imagery here. So according to this, it is estimated that the average cost of living in America was $53,564 in 2020. The figure fluctuated from $41,600 in Mississippi to $65,740 in California if one lives in San Francisco. However, no job is needed to provide for one's needs, such as housing, food, hygiene, and security. What a vivid imagination. And that's a fallacy that I've seen people ride. They ride with that, like, and they are all serious. I've seen a lot of people just in public that speak that way. They'll talk about, that's the image or that's the package that they were sold. So I'm just going to keep going here. All right. So according to this, a homeless encampment run by San Francisco cost the city $60,000 per year per tent. A San Francisco Chronicle reported the city's 6 so-called safe sleeping villages provide homeless people tents, 3 meals a day, security, and washrooms. According to the outlet, the city created these sites in May 2020 to protect the homeless population from the CV-19, quote, quickly, end quote, getting them off crowded sidewalks and into an open air place where people could socially distance and access basic services. The program currently costs $18.2 million for about 260 tents. The program apparently was such a, quote, roaring success, end quote, that officials from the San Francisco Department of Homeless and Supportive Housing went before the Board of Supervisors Budget and Appropriations Committee last week and requested $20 million over the next 2 years to keep all the tent encampments running. Of the requested funds, $15 million would be spent in the upcoming fiscal year, making the cost per tent $57,000. The additional $5 million would be for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, when officials plan to significantly scale back the program. The discussion comes as the city prepares to wind down its homeless hotel program, which is currently sheltering about 2,000 people. While the homeless department has promised that every hotel resident will be offered a housing placement, the city is still grappling with a tight housing market and limited shelter options for thousands on the street. Those high costs and city staff's proposal to continue funding what was supposed to be a temporary pandemic era solution was met with criticism among supervisors. The $20 million being requested from the program, quote, seems like an exorbitant amount for something that we're trying to transition away from as quickly as possible, end quote, said Supervisor Asha Safai at the hearing. Gigi Whitley, a Department of Homeless and Supportive Housing staffer, tried to justify the cost, saying that of the $18 million the city had spent on safe sleeping sites, about $1.2 million was for the showers, $3 million was for providing meals on site, and $13 million was going to provide around-the-clock staffing and security. That $13 million was needed for the city to be, quote, good neighbors and good stewards, end quote, said Whitley, explaining that 24-hour staffing was, quote, necessary so that someone doesn't leave the site and go into the neighborhood and maybe establish their tent there, end quote. This unseen level of generosity was made possible thanks to the so-called Proposition C, passed in 2018. The legislative initiative hiked San Francisco's already high individual and business taxes by 28 to 33%, with the goal of raising around $300 million per year to be spent on homeless, supportive housing, and mental health services, almost double the $380 million the city was already spending as expected. A ballot initiative that taxed well to do individuals and businesses to pay for homeless services was overwhelmingly supported in the ultra liberal San Francisco. Proposition C passed with more than 60% of the vote. According to the Hoover Institution, the city's 2020-2021 budget for the Department of Homeless and Supportive Housing is about $852 million. To put that in perspective, Sacramento's city budget is about $650 million, which covers all public services for their population of over 500,000. San Francisco estimates about 8,000 homeless live in the city. The $852 million budget works out to about $106,500 per homeless individual. Still, that envy-worthy number is proposed to increase. The department's website says that San Francisco Mayor London Breed's proposal, the FY 21-22 and the FY 22-23, the fiscal year budgets, include significant investments to address homelessness. In total, the proposed fiscal year 21 through 23 HSH budget leverages over $1 billion over the next 2 years in federal, state, and local resources, including Proposition C funds. Aside from such substantial support of the homeless, there are other factors that contribute to the issue in the Golden State and in San Francisco in particular. One is a rent control, which has been shown to cause housing shortages to reduce the number of low-income people who can live in a city while raising the demand for housing. Further, it deters new housing construction, which worsens the homeless problem by creating more people needing homes than homes available. Another factor is overregulation of the housing construction, which adds to the price tags for owners and renters. Then, as many California cities are sanctuary cities, quote, sanctuary cities, end quote, that welcome illegal immigrants, it comes as no surprise that the homeless population is on the rise. High taxes make people and businesses leave to lower tax states. Therefore, there is a smaller tax base and fewer jobs available for those who need work. Add to all of that San Francisco's lenient drug policy, which includes failing to prosecute fentanyl dealers. It was reported in April that twice as many San Franciscans died of drug overdose than from the CV-19. At the same time, San Francisco's Department of Public Health has distributed methadone, alcohol, tobacco products, and marijuana to homeless people sheltered in the hotels during the pandemic, arguing that this type of, quote, support, end quote, is, quote, good for them and our community. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. So there's a little bit of lunacy for your Monday, but yeah. So to me, all this does is it just circles back to the problem, or to the piece that I was on about back in 2019. I mean, it's absolutely bizarro land, because they just refuse to get to their own root causes. They refuse to do that. They refuse to address some of the causes of the homelessness, and then the mental, all of these issues, I think they're individual issues. And then somehow I think those issues kind of, they just kind of bled into one another. In terms of, you had the mental hospitals that were closed. You have the housing problem. You have the housing shortage problems. You have liberals and progressives that run the roost. Back in 2019, there were at least 52 blocks of homelessness, at least 52 blocks. I mean, I might have stumbled onto a few, just because I needed to go downtown for something. But, that was a reality. But It's very much a problem, and they're just exacerbating the problem. They're not going to do anything about it. I mean, when you look at Marin County and San Francisco, those are some of the most well-off counties in the nation. They are. But then you just had, King Newsom about a couple of weeks ago on stage spinning the big wheel. And guess who the winners of the mocktail lottery? Guess what counties those people came out of? I'm just saying you can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. I mean, you can't. And they're just turning the place into it's worse than it's a dystopian nightmare is what they're turning it into. It's not just San Francisco, it's trickling down. You can see people, there's a migration pattern that's happening from the Bay Area all the way down because people are running from these prices. The businesses are leaving. They're trying to figure out how to tax people that have left the state. Um, it's you can't make this stuff up. And imagine this would be the model. I mean, this would be my fears if this nation becomes a one party state, a one party rule situation, then I think we will all be subject to this type of dystopia because of their policies. Um, Newsom also touts that there's some surplus somewhere after being in the red for several months and basically begging the previous administration for bailouts. All of a sudden, there's a surplus in which there's just money. There's money everywhere, right? We're even spinning the big wheel and giving money away. I mean, you can't make it up. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of what I was on about there. Yeah, the small businesses were struggling back in 2019. I remember that Garcetti was not in LA. He was not doing anything about the amount of homeless that was downtown. Even some of the businesses, just to keep the homeless off of their steps, they were starting to plant thorny bushes and things just to keep people off their steps of their businesses. And it was costing the city a ton of money because of all the excrement, for the lack of a better word, that was on the streets. It was just a mess. And I think there was a typhus an outbreak. There was concern that would happen because of the amount of rats that were downtown. They removed the carpet from near City Hall, like they were just removing everything because it's just filth downtown because of the problem with the homelessness. It exploded in 2019, and right now they're covering it up. They're romanticizing it with all of these encampments and tents, and that's what they're doing. I mean, I'm talking about the government, and then I'm also talking about the people that run the roost, the liberals, the progressives, people from the 60s that they don't want. Can you blame them? They don't want these encampments in their backyards. They don't want homeless tents in their backyards. They don't want it. They don't want them in their neighborhood. But they don't start complaining until those people are coming. They leave downtown and then they get into those more expensive districts, and that they're affected. Now you're affected by this homeless crisis. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm on about there. But that's not going to end. It's really not going to end. um, they'll just keep creating safe spaces, and I'm just thinking, well, why can't you just spend the money? Your money would be better spent if you actually addressed the root causes, the VP talks about all the time. You can manage it a lot better rather than you're spending more money than other cities. The budget is higher than your other cities that are the budget for entire cities is smaller than what you need to keep this up, to keep this safe space up. And in fact, there's some areas that I even noticed that they've put up fencing where the homeless were. So I guess they took them all to these little safe spaces, and now it's all good. So yeah. But the exodus is real. What can I say? So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hello to Survival, and Marcy T's here. How are you, Marcy T? Thanks so much for coming in. Let me just drop a couple of got lots of comments in here. Alien Believers is here. How are you, Alien Believers? Thank you so much for coming in. And Jermaine G's here. How are you? Okay, and let me just say this to Survival says, I'm a new subscriber, listened yesterday. Oh, hi, Survival. Thank you so much for coming in and thanks for coming over and giving us a try over here. Thank you so much. And Backyard Politics is here, and Alien Believers. And I missed some other. Alien Believer says homeless encampment. I've seen some of those new tents. I mean, and I don't mean to be cynical here or to be satirical, but those tents are really nice. I mean, they're super nice tents, but I just, but you've got all kinds of, I don't think you'll ever meet the same person, the same homeless person, the same type of homeless person. I mean, whether you see them in an interview or you see them on the streets, I mean, they're all coming from different places, whether in their life or whether their mental resolve or the financial resolve, whatever it is, they're all very different. But I don't see, this is not sustainable. And that's why that seems to be another word that I'm on about regularly. It's not a sustainable thing that they're doing. They're just, they're not even putting a Band-Aid on it at this point, putting a tent on it, and it's kind of exploding. So what I'm going to do next is, as I said, I'm going to play a clip from my call in. This was my first call in. It was actually my first time on Backyard Politics. And so, yeah, I'm going to be happy to share that with you guys so much. Thank you so much for coming in. And so we'll take a quick little infomercial break, and I'll be right back. So we're going to go over to the clip from last night. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to Black Spring with Autumn. And if this is your first time here, I want to say welcome. We do have, of course, we do have a community tab, and I invite you to go over there when available or when you have time at your leisure. And yes, I welcome you all. Thanks so much for coming in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the clip from my call-in at Backyard Politics. And I will let me try to give you a little bit. I want to make sure I'm going to try to give this as much justice as I can. Let's see. All right. So I will say that I just kind of jumped in. I kind of jumped in on this particular stream last night, and the stream was entitled, I did myself a disservice. I jumped in, and the stream was entitled Proper Grammar is Racist. So I failed to address the topic at hand, but I kind of got on about something else, and something else maybe that was inspired from a subscriber or a comment. So I just want you to know that Proper Grammar is Racist was the title of the subject of this show, but I kind of jumped in on some nuance, if you will. So I'm going to give you guys some full screen on that. And this is Backyard Politics and some call-in action from Black Spring with Autumn.
You're on Backyard Politics with John and Tyke.
Hi,
This is Autumn?
Yes, this is Black Spring with Autumn. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Doing well enough.
What got you to call in tonight, Autumn?
Well, I was just looking at I think I caught maybe the end of the question maybe that you were asking about the POC or these the wordsmithing that that the left seems to get into. It's just exhausting. To me, they don't really define anything. They don't go down to just the baseline of what they are trying to create an argument for. I guess to me, what is color? I mean, I think we're all, if you look at color, even the people at Lowe's or Walmart or Sherwin-Williams can tell you that there's a spectrum of color, and we all we can fall in between any of those shades. So it's just really, it's dismal, the amount of race and the amount of just the attacks that we're going through as a nation, as the human race. The human race is the critical race, and it's just, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it. I mean, I don't per se title myself as a Black conservative. I'd say I'm an American who happens to be Black, because I consider Black being a bit of an alias or a mechanism of control at this point. So I don't really want to put those kinds of caps on the front of who I am or the way that I think. I think the thought is much more important than what they're pushing. But they're pushing division. And for those that didn't have a problem with Black, they're going to have a problem with Black because they're creating the racism. They're creating the racism. And I just had to chime in there.
No, and that is such an important point that you make, because that is facts. I mean, critical race theory, and we've been talking a lot about this lately, and I did a special, or actually did an episode on critical race theory back in October, before it was kind of even being talked about. And when I was reading this article, it was an article that was in I can't remember the publication, but they really figured it out. I mean, when they were talking about equity versus equality, and they were explaining the difference, and it's absolutely insane. And they are literally teaching our young people, either if you happen to be an American Black person, you're a victim. You're automatically, no matter what you do, you're the victim. And if you're white, you're the oppressor. And you have no choice. It doesn't make a difference. And every decision you make, every friendship you have, every relationship you have, every experience you've ever had in your entire life has been based on racism. And that's just insane. And it's a poison. So let me ask you this, Autumn, when did you realize you were a conservative? I kind of want to hear your backstory.
Well, I guess I can say I've always been a bit of I've always kind of been for the lack of a better word, a loner, so to speak. I've always done my own thing, and I've kind of gone against what maybe the popular thing. But to me, it wasn't going against, anyone or any idea. I was just doing what I wanted to do, or I was just responding to whatever spoke to me, even at an early age. But and I don't come from a political family per se, but many of the things, the thing about I noticed growing up, that most people who identify as either Black or African American, they speak quite conservatively. Their ideas are quite rooted in conservative and more of a conservative value, but there's an emotional hitching that says go to the Democrats because they are for the people. They've always, that appeal to Blacks. I don't think I've always understood it, but it seems like, maybe that's what was going on, just by observation when I was a kid, but I was never really a part of the process. I never went to the polls with parents, or, they would always talk in a pretty much disparaging way of the quote leaders of the Black community, if you will, the Sharptons, the Jesse Jacksons. They never had respect for any of these personalities, and that's the irony of it. You guys have total disdain for these personalities, yet I would imagine that you're voting for the people that you're voting for that party, I would imagine. So that's that. But as for me, I've always been curious as to why my values actually lined up more with conservatives or Republicans even growing up. Because I'm like, I totally believe in what they're saying on this side. And, I started, doing my own investigation, and pre 2016, I was pretty sure that I was conservative then. So I don't quite consider myself a true red piller. I guess red pilling doesn't, you don't necessarily have a pre-red pilling, a preschool or pre-college red pilling. You just, to me, I think I was going with what spoke to me the most and what was most consistent with what I believed in. So I found that I stepped into it with, with enough ease that it was, that I wanted to learn more and to defend that where available, where necessary.
That's
And
very, yeah, that's awesome. Real quick, you had mentioned like Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and those characters, and they were supposed to carry the torch for Martin Luther King Jr. And they did
They sold
everything
out.
but. I mean,
They
they
sold
took
out.
and they corrupted his message. They turned his message completely on its head, and yet they still said, they still would say that we've got to remember Martin Luther King Jr. And then they would preach the opposite of what he preached. And I never understood that. And I never understood why so many people of color would follow him. And then I kind of woke up one day and realized that what he did, what the people that were marching with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton were paid operatives. And so if you turned on the TV and you were a Black American and you saw Jesse Jackson linking arms with these people and walking down the street, you almost felt like that was something that you were supposed to belong to. Am I wrong on that?
well, I would think, I think that you're onto something that I call, a bit of a bait and switch, or just a deception, or just to me more of a race hustler. I think that they go in, with everything. They want to appear to be unified, to have a message, and that there's a way forward. And then what they get, they're actually just making a way for themselves, keeping themselves in business. And that's, I think that's another philosophy that I've heard of, that was it a Booker T. Washington that quoted, this might be misquoted, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that there was a certain class of Blacks that made there was an actual business, or they benefited from the Negro at the time,
Right.
in that language, from the struggle, or from the just the trials and tribulations of Blacks. So I think that it's just been, that's what it's been, that's what it was for them, and they sold it. I think they sold it as long as they could, and to me, we're watching a generation amongst, I think, this BLM crowd and more, are just a repackaging of those leaders. Those are your new Sharptons and your Jamel Hills and this ex-BLM coolers and all these people. These people are going to be a part of, I think, the new version of history, because I think they are rewriting history.
Wow, awesome.
So I think these are going to be the people that are going to be talked about in the future, and who will stand up then and say, hey, that's not exactly how that went. Because even for the civil rights, for me, I can imagine that if the civil rights was painted at all like it is, if the media controlled the civil rights, or the media during the time of the civil rights, the way that they've controlled the narrative during this time of BLM and all the other race hustlers, then to me, I question all of that. I question the authenticity of all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, these people have profited from victimhood, from selling victimhood, from selling racial tension, from selling a narrative that is decades old. And they profit. They keep themselves in the limelight, in power. They're funding generations of their families through these lies, and through this promoting racial tension, promoting racism from their side of the perspective. And that's how they've made the brand. And it's the critical human nature, right? It's the human nature. We all have sin, and some of us sell ourselves out for money, and that's what these people are doing. For money and power, they're selling themselves out, and they're selling out the people that are supposed to be their community. They've undermined and basically completely sold that community out for their own profit. It's like the BLM woman that founded BLM and is now I think they drummed her out, but she owns 3 mansions now, so she got what she wanted, right? It's the same story. They're doing it for their own benefit.
Absolutely. So I think that, at this point, I'm not sure if we can, if anybody, if waking up, I try not to use the phrase anymore, because I think we're beyond the wake up stage. I think it's going to be individuals or allies with those that are like-minded at this point.
Right.
So that's it. I really appreciate you for taking the call, and I'm enjoying the show, and yes.
Well, let me end
back.
with this, Autumn. First of all, thank you for calling in. I am. It's an honor to speak with you. So I'm very excited that you called in. But I do want to say this, and this is something that this is the message. The whole message behind Backyard Politics, Autumn, is the fact that we need, as conservatives, as Republicans, as Christians, as whatever label you want to put on us, constitutionalists, we need to get involved in the politics in our own backyard. We've got to stop focusing 100% of our attention on the national political scene, because while we're doing that, we've kept our eyes closed to what's going on in our own backyard. And the left had a tremendous ground game, and the left sent their ground game in and have taken over the school boards across this country. They've taken over the House of Representatives in just about every state. Now, they not governors. We've been able to keep governors for whatever reason. I don't know how that's happened, but we've got to get back involved and stay focused on what's going on in our school boards, what's going on at our city council, what's going on at our state legislature level. And even the local media, they don't even talk about what's going on, because the media, they share their information quietly, underhandedly to the leftists, the little army out there that's trying to take over all of our local politics. And they don't talk about, you can turn on your local TV anytime you want to watch the local news. They'll talk about shootings that happen locally. They'll talk about car accidents, fires, all this other stuff, the weather. They never talk about what's going on in your local legislature. And that's by design. So we have to do, like you said, we've got to educate ourselves. We've got to do our own homework, and we've got to get active in our own communities. And this is something that I've been preaching now for the past several months, and I'm going to continue to preach it because it's the solution. Oh, I got another call coming in. Let me put you on hold a second.
All right, guys. So that was Backyard Politics, and Backyard Politics happens to be here in the chat room. So thank you again, Backyard Politics, for having me, and for and for letting us know, about the work that you're doing and the importance of it. So thank you so much. And also, I'm going to use that to kind of round out this stream, because this was, as always, as I tend to do, this was a little bit 11th hour, but no less important. Even if it's 11th hour, I think there's still a lot to be gained in the 11th hour. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I just want to say salute to all of the people that are in the stream. And I want to say hello to Joseph Francis Burton. Thank you so much for tuning in. So let me read your comment before we get out of here. I'm sure I'll be back, but this is a Tuesday morning here. And Joseph Francis Burton says, same is true with most of the Mexicans I know on the border. Very conservative, Catholic, hardworking, family-oriented, yet still vote Dem. Can I say, is it magic? Is it magic? I mean, there again, is it magic? But then this was just another point I wanted to add, was that even if I go into my own family history, you have a huge work ethic that was just, and I think that was a culture, like the work ethic, like hard work was the work ethic. And if you say hard work these days, it's almost you're demonized. It's almost, there's something wrong with hard work today. But hard work was just what it was back then. It wasn't a means to complain. It was a way of life, is what you did. and you did as much as you could with what you had, and you kept going. And today it just seems like everybody wants to, not everybody, but you have those that just want to say that, if I'm inclined, or if it's expected, if anybody expects me to work hard or do something, to learn something, then that's oppressive. I mean, I can think of an example in which, I had a professor. She said, white people are tired of being told that they are the oppressor. And I was thinking to myself, well, why in the hell are you working at an HBCU? You're working at HBCU, and you said, these are your words. White people are tired of being told they are the oppressor. So why do you stay? Why do you stay? And I assume that was a fair assertion, or fair to say that she and her husband were conservative, but then, they get beat up on these convocations. And I'm just thinking, why are you taking it? Why take it? You've got enough experience now that, you could move on, right? You can. It's no less competitive. I didn't say it was going to be easy, because, the market is oversaturated. But there was an admission. That was an admission, probably of several years ago, now over 10 years ago, that was a comment that I overheard, or it was eventually told to me that was the way she felt. She happened to be white, and she was working at a HBCU. So there again, the irony, it never ends, right? I mean, without irony, who would we be? Where would we be without the irony, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say salute to everyone in the stream and get you out of here for your Tuesday. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Hope you found something in this stream that inspired thought or stimulated thought. And maybe you'll check out some of the content creators in the stream. And thank you again, Backyard Politics. Tyrant Spain TDOA is here. Thank you so much. Or he was here. Thank you, Tyrant Spain TDOA. Awesome Alice is here, or was here. And King Bluto, aka Chrysler Imperial H. I'll have to fix that up. I'll have to make the appropriate changes that reflect that. Thank you for your support, as always. Chrysler Imperial H, the former Chrysler Imperial H. And Jermaine G, thank you so much for coming in and supporting us. I appreciate it. And Survival, thank you for being a new subscriber here. And Alien Believers, thank you so much for coming in. And Marcy T's here. Thank you so much, Marcy T, for supporting us and for all that you do. And thank you also, Marcy T, for coming on to the panel the other day. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to see you guys in person. So to see the face, I mean, you guys are always having to deal with my face, so it's nice to put your face in the space every now and then. Latin Patriot, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you so much for sharing Backyard Politics with us. And yes, and DJ Vision Barnett, how are you? Thank you so much for coming in. And I think, and Anarchy Television, you always sneak in here, and I'm behind on your videos. I'll get there. All right, guys. And Joseph Francis Burton, thank you so much for supporting the channel the way that you do. And yeah, thanks so much for coming in. But yes, I will say again to Joseph Francis Burton, I don't know, is it magic, that we have minorities that have a high propensity to vote, to continue to vote for Democrats, even at this late, at this day, time, and hour, that there are still those that are inclined to go there. What's making them go there? I don't know. What's keeping them there? I don't know. Maybe they'll change. I don't know. Do I have the answers? I'm saying most definitely no. But I think the approach and the objectives are a little bit off based on where we are. So yeah, that's what I'm on about. So I would think that, I think that the left and those narratives have basically kind of destroyed work ethics and the thought behind. They've changed the way people think about things, even if they can't get you to do something, directly. they can change the way you think about it. So to me, it starts with the thought. As soon as they can change the way you think about something, the more inclined you are to adopt their ideologies or their ways. And that's what they're working on right now, with all these theories. So that's kind of what I'm on about. And thank you guys so much. I'm going to give one more infomercial and get you guys on your way. All right, guys, once again, thank you so much for tuning in to the 11th hour on Black Spring with Autumn. And of course, look forward to seeing you guys in the next live stream in the comment section on a Night Cube Moonlight stream, a real under, or even one of these random, what I call sunrise surprises, or who knows? You never know. But you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you guys around.